In Dopamine Nation, the doctor, she's a psychiatrist and an addiction specialist. She breaks down how the modern world is consistent of pleasure that's quietly rewiring our brain, but not in a good way. She opens the book with real patient stories from our practice. And one of the most striking examples is a patient struggling with addiction to masturbation and pornography. What makes this story powerful and isn't just about shock value. It's how normal and relatable it is. The patient isn't just a criminal or a liar. He's just someone caught in a cycle of ease and unlimited dopamine. The doctor explains that dopamine is the chemical of wanting, not happiness. Every time we chase pleasure, whether it's sex, social media, food, drugs, or validation, dopamine spikes. But the brain always tries to balance itself. So after pleasure comes pain, anxiety, shame, emptiness, or craving. Even more stimulation in the patient's case. What started out as curiosity turns into compulsion. That behavior, it escalates. Tolerance is built from this, and eventually the very thing that once brought pleasure started becoming misery. The one thing the book core message is, the same source of pleasure becomes a source of pain because overindulgence. The doctor uses a seesaw metaphor. Pleasure is one side, pain is the other side. In the world of constant indulgence, the seesaw tips too far towards pleasure, forcing the brain to push back harder with pain. That's why so many people feel numb, depressed, unmotivated, restless, despite having more comfort than ever in human history. What makes this book different? It doesn't just diagnose the problem. It talks about the solution. And one of the keys is intentional abstinence. Not forever, but it resets the dopamine baseline. In the patient stories, stepping away from addictive behavior allows them to feel real motivation, real clarity, and real joy. Again, without needing any extreme stimulation. Forgive me. Another major takeaway is that discomfort isn't the enemy. In fact, discomfort offers a path back to balance. Whether it's boredom, craving, or emotional pain, learning to sit with it instead of escaping it helps retrain the brain. Overall, Dopamine Nation is a mirror. It forces you to look at your own habits, the scrolling, the numbness, the overindulgence, and ask whether or not you are in control or you being controlled by the pleasures. The book message is simple. Be uncomfortable. In the world that sells non-stop pleasure, learning restraint might be the most powerful form of freedom available. All right, in Dopamine Nation, the doctor talks about gambling, and this is where dopamine really shows its dark side. She explains that gambling is so addictive because it's unpredictable. The brain doesn't get its biggest dopamine hit from guaranteed rewards. It is from uncertainty. Every bet carries anticipation, and anticipation equals dopamine. You're so excited. What really is surprising that gamblers often experiences a bigger dopamine spike after losing than after winning. Losing doesn't just end the game. It triggers loss-changing habits. The brain convinces itself, I was close. The next one is going to be the one. The next one is going to hit. Them near misses keep dopamine elevated and pulls the gambler deeper into the cycle. Winning actually reduces dopamine because the chase stops. It's crazy if you really think about it. If you look at it the way that I'm explaining it, it's really wild. I never knew this until I read this. Losing keeps hope, tension, and cravings alive. So gambling addiction isn't really about the money. It's about being hooked on the dopamine loops created by uncertainty and loss. Think about how bored we got to be in order to chase something that we know we're going to lose, but it's just giving us a certain level of excitement. I don't know about y'all, but my money don't work like that. In the book Dopamine, Doctor connects the same dopamine loop to social media, especially the way we chase likes, views, and validation. She explains that the platforms are designed around certain rewards, and I'm guilty of it. Trust me, I am. Hence what I'm doing. You never know how many likes you'll get, who will comment, whether the post will hit. The unpredictability is the hook. Just like gambling, the anticipation feedbacks creates a dopamine spike. Again, I'm guilty of it. What keeps people stuck isn't even the likes themselves. It's the waiting, the refreshing, the clicking, the hoping that this post is going to be the one. A post that underperforms can actually drive more craving. The one that does because the brain starts chasing validation, maybe the next one to hit. Over time, it trains the brain to tie self-worth to external feedbacks. And again, we talked about this 1,000 times. That's the life we live in at these times, external validation. Dopamine hits gets weaker, but the urge to check gets stronger. That's how scrolling turns into compulsion. The doctor points out that social media isn't net neutral. It's engineered to exploit the same dopamine pathways as gambling, and the cost is attention, presence, and this isn't real satisfaction. It's crazy to me. I just never thought about gambling in that way. In dopamine, the doctor explains that pleasure and pain exist for survival, not comfort. Without pleasure, human beings wouldn't be motivated to eat, to connect, to even reproduce. Pleasure pushes us forward. Pleasure pushes us towards behavior that keeps us alive as a species. Without pain, we wouldn't know how to protect ourselves. Pain teaches us what's dangerous, what hurts, and what we need to avoid. It creates boundaries. It keeps us alive. The problem isn't pleasure or pain. The problem is imbalance. The modern life, we've engineered endless pleasure without no effort. Food, sex, entertainment, validation, distractions. At the same time, we try to eliminate pain completely. Boredom, discomfort, struggle, and even emotional difficulty. But when we overload pleasure and avoid pain, the brain pushes back. The system breaks. We become anxious instead of fulfilled, consistently craving instead of content. The doctor message is a healthy brain needs both sides of the equation. Pleasure without pain leads to addiction. Pain without pleasure leads to despair. Balance is what creates resilience, motivation, and meaning. All right, this part is for my weed heads. In the book Dopamine, the doctor talks about how the downside of weed, dependency, especially how it affects dopamine over time. She explains that cannabis can feel harmless because it relaxes you. It takes the edge off. But with regular use, the brain adapts. Dopamine signaling becomes weaker, meaning you start to feel less motivated, less intrigued, and less pleasure from everyday life. Remember, everything is balanced. Instead of weed being something you use occasionally, it becomes something you need just to feel normal. That's where dependency forms. Remember, it's not always dramatic, but subtle. People stop feeling driven, stop chasing goals, and start avoiding discomfort altogether. The doctor points out this blunted dopamine response is when heavy users often report feeling numb, foggy, emotionally flat when they're not using. To fix this, she talks about resetting dopamine system, not through no hacks, shortcuts, but through abstinence, giving the brain time without artificial stimulation so it can recalibrate itself. During the reset period, things usually feel worse before they feel better. Of course, you go through withdrawals. You got mood dips, boredom, increased craving spikes, but that discomfort is just a part of the healing process, which I'm sure a lot of us understand. That dopamine balance returns motivation, focus, and natural pleasure slowly. Her message isn't anti-weed though. Trust me, she's not saying that. It's about awareness. Anything that consistently floods dopamine can take away your ability to feel joy without it. All right, in dopamine, the doctor talks about experimenting with rats, and this was very interesting. She explained why relapse happens so easily. In these studies, the rats are given access to highly addictive substances like cocaine, drinks, sweetened drinks, stuff like that. And they get hooked. When that substance is taken away, the rats eventually detox and return to normal behavior. But here's the key part. Once they get re-exposed to these drugs, they become highly addictive again almost immediately if they was never sober in the first place. The doctor explains that addiction leaves a lasting imprint on the brain. Even after dopamine levels stabilize, the memory of intense pleasure remains. The brain remembers exactly where the rewards came from and how powerful it felt. She connects this to human behavior, especially with food. People can clean up their diet, reset their dopamine responses, and feel great. But once they reintroduce them highly processed sugars and foods, and cravings come back fast and strong. That's why they always say, once you get away, just stay away. And it's not a lack of willpower. It's how dopamine learning works. The brain is wired to remember shortcuts to pleasure. And this is why she emphasizes caution with just one more, that thinking. For some people, re-exposure doesn't just reset moderation, it reactivates the addiction loops. Her point isn't hopelessness, it's awareness. Explain how the brain remembers dopamine. It helps people with better choices about boundaries, exposures, and long-term balance. In the book Dopamine, the doctor also talks about weight loss surgery and how it can unexpectedly increase risk to alcohol addiction. She explains that with certain surgeries, weight loss surgeries, parts of the stomach of the digestive system are removed or bypassed. Those parts normally help slow the filter of alcohol absorption. When they're gone, alcohol enters the bloodstream much faster in a way more concentrated way. Way more concentrated. The results are almost like alcohol going straight to the blood, like an alcohol IV. People get drunk faster with smaller amounts. And the effects last way longer too. That suddenly increased spike creates a much more stronger dopamine hit, which increases the risk of dependency. In Dopamine Nation, the doctor points out that some patients trade one addiction for another, food for alcohol, not because they're weak character, but because the brain is still chasing that dopamine hits. And alcohol now delivers a way more powerful blow than before because it's going straight to the bloodstream. This is especially dangerous because many people don't realize what's happening when they drink the same way they used to before, but their body is processing the alcohol completely different. Her point is that biology matters. When we change the body, we also change how substances affect our brain. And without awareness, those changes can quietly pull us into deeper addiction, faster and deeper than expected and deeper than ever before. So we got to be careful with that. All right, in the book Dopamine, she talks about reducing screen time, especially with phones, because how easily they hijack our dopamine. She explains that consistent phone use gives us endless, effortless stimulation. Scrolling videos, notifications, and likes, the brain never gets a break. There's no boredom, there's no stillness, there's no space to think or create. What's interesting is how she connects that this free time in the past, that free time was meant to rest, reflection, or even being creative. But now it just becomes a problem because dopamine is just one tap away. Like you just literally pick up your phone and do what you want to do. For many people, especially the unemployed or the understimulated, dopamine becomes a coping mechanism. Instead of building structure, purpose, or direction, the phone fills the gap. It numbs the discomfort and it kills the motivation. And the doctor warns that this hits young men particularly hard, these YNs. The cycle looks like this. You mess up, you escape into a dopamine hit, you lose motivation, escape into it, and then even gets more addiction because they just keep repeating the cycle. The brain gets trained to avoid pain instead of confronting it. And without challenge, responsibility, or discomfort, people lose confidence, they lose discipline, and they even lose self-control. Her point isn't to shame, it's to wake people up. Dopamine becomes the main source of relief, it quietly replaces purpose. Reducing screen time isn't about being productive. It's about giving the brain room to rebuild motivation and something real. So in the book Dopamine Nation, the doctor makes one of her most important points here. Pain and pleasure are linked by the same dopamine system. They're not opposites, they're partners. I know. We're going to get there. When we experience pleasure, dopamine spikes, but the brain always tries to restore balance. So after pleasure, the pain releases pain, discomfort, anxiety, craving, emptiness, certain things that it does. The stronger and the more frequent the pleasure, the stronger the pain response becomes. That's why chasing pleasure nonstop always leads to suffering. What flips this on its head is because pain can also lead to pleasure. When we are willingly experiencing healthy pain, effort, discipline, boredom, exercise, cold, emotional honesty, the brain responds by releasing dopamines afterwards. That's why hard things always feel good after you do them. You know how you want to do something like, man, I don't want somebody to do it. You be glad you did it. Dopamine. The doctor explains that modern life tries to eliminate pain completely. But when you avoid pain, we also block long-term pleasure. We become dependent on shortcuts instead of earning dopamine naturally. Her message is simple, but uncomfortable. If you want real pleasure, you cannot avoid pain. If you avoid pain at all costs, pleasure will eventually disappear. Pain, when chosen intentionally, it becomes medicine. It resets the dopamine system and restores balance between craving and commitment and contentment. In the book Dopamine, the doctor points out that we now sit about 50% more of the time we did 50 years ago. And that lack of movement has serious effects on our dopamine system and our mental health. She argues that exercise is more powerful than any pill that could be prescribed. She says not because pills don't work, but because the movement treats the root of the problem. Exercise creates intentional pain, strain, effort, and discomfort. And that pain triggers the brain to rebalance itself. This is why some people get addicted to working out. They're addicted to the pain of it, the running and all that, because it creates a level of dopamine and a balance as well. The key idea, pain can treat pain. When we avoid all discomfort, emotional pain gets louder, anxiety, depression, restlessness, and cravings increase. But when we choose healthy pain, working out, pushing their body, doing hard things, the brain responds with dopamine, endorphins, and a sense of calm afterwards. The doctor explains that not all pain is equal though. One type of pain can actually cancel out another. Physical effort can reduce mental suffering. Discipline can quiet anxiety. Movement can restore motivation. The real enemy, she says, is convenience. Modern life removes all effort from everything. Food, entertainment, transportation, connection, but that convenience is slowly killing our resilience. When the body struggles, the mind suffers. Her message is clear. The solution isn't more comfort, it's earned relief. Choosing discomfort on purpose is one of the fastest ways to restore balance in the dopamine-saturated world. In Dopamine Nation, the doctor talks about how humans evolve with a scarcity mindset. Our brains are built for environments where food, comfort, and pleasure are limited. That mindset helped us survive. The problem is that now we live in abundance, especially in some of the richest countries in the world. Pleasure is cheap, is instant, and is unlimited. Food, entertainment, sex, shopping, distractions, all of it. Our brains are still wired as if resources are scarce. So instead of feeling satisfied, we overconsume. The doctor points out that wealthier countries often struggle with this the most, struggle with addiction, depression, and mental illness. Not because people have too little, but because they have too much access and too few limits. We got to understand that abundance confuses the dopamine system. When rewards are everywhere, nothing feels rewarding. The brain stops responding normally and people feel empty, anxious, and unmotivated. Her message is that freedom without limits doesn't lead to happiness. It leads to deregulation. When we actually need structure, boundaries, and intentional restraint. She says that scarcity used to be forced by our environments. Now it has to be chosen. In a world with endless access, choosing limits becomes an act of self-control and self-respect. And that's it with this book, Dopamine Nation. Listen, I used to have an idea about life, and this book rewired that idea that I had. I used to always say, damn, I had a great day today. I know something bad is going to happen because my day was too good. And I used to always say, like, damn, I done had a rough month. I know I got some blessings coming. But the way that she explained this book and the way that she broke it down really rewired my way of thinking because of dopamine. Meaning that when I have these certain days, knowing that I've done certain things that I should or shouldn't done and how my body is going to respond or my mind is going to respond or the dopamine is going to respond, it lets me know. So me putting in more work and me doing things that's going to have push and help me control these dopamine spikes and lows on a consistent level, because sometimes I don't feel like going to the gym. Sometimes I don't feel like going at all. But then after I go, I feel good. I'm happy that I went. And sometimes I won't go at all. And not always because I just don't want to. A lot of times life be getting in the way of a lot of different things. But my point is learning to be able to be more structured and more intentional with my pain levels and things that I'm doing, meaning working out, going to the gym, like restricting from diet, restricting from access, restricting from sex and stuff like that, really can help me be able to balance this scale a lot more effectively than I thought possible. Does that make sense? So this book definitely had an effect on me, and it definitely changes the way that I'm going to move forward with my life in ways that I never thought before. And you know a lot of these things already, but once you get a better understanding on a scientific level of your body, it will help. It's going to help me move forward in a way more constructive way. But this is the book, Dopamine Nation. If you have read it, let me know what you thought. This your boy Pito back with another book review. Let's get it. I'm out here.